Good morning, Southwest Florida, and welcome to the American Tradesman Show with my guest, Gerald from B&K Water Extraction and Mold Services.
What's up?
What's up? Good morning, Brian. Brian from Prevent Plumbing. Don't fret.
Call Prevent. What's up?
Good morning. Danny, good morning. Good morning to you from Danny from Doria's Mechanical Services, right,
Good
Dan?
morning, yep.
That's right. He's an air conditioning guy. And Juan, my partner Juan from American Electrical. Good morning, Juan.
Good morning, good morning.
It is Saturday morning, fellas. I mean, Brian, you awake?
Oh, yeah.
I know this is an early show. This is an early 5 o'clock in the morning, right, Joe?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's hot. It is definitely a hot one, right? Mm-hmm. The steam is coming out. I bet you the air conditioning is blowing, right, Danny?
Yep, they're blowing.
You got to be
Hopefully cold.
And if they're not, Danny, you got to call Danny.
Give us a call.
Give Danny a call over at Mechanical Services. Doria's it. They'll definitely take care of you if you're hot. Gerald, this morning we were really kind of going through all the last few weeks about the COVID, right? I mean, the virus that's going around, and a lot of things that we're talking about is air quality. I mean, that's part of what your company does, right?
That's it.
And then not to say it, but it also is the same thing as from Danny's side of this is air conditioning is involved with air quality as well, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you talked a little bit last week about UV lights, and that's part of what some of the things you guys do over there. But on the other side, I wanted to kind of go through a few things with you this morning, Gerald. We even went to a job this morning, didn't we? I mean, past week we went through a remodel that somebody had already did a demo on it, right?
Yeah. They did the demo for a remediation. They had CPVC lines, which is, if you guys listen to our show, is a bad thing because, of course, they leak, they split, they leak, have all kinds of issues. Evidently, she's had a leak for quite a while inside of the wall. It actually basically rotted out metal studs and base plates in there. So, I mean, this had been leaking for quite a while. In the course of it, it was finally discovered that it was a leak. Insurance company sent out a remediation company. This is a very recognized remediation company. And they pulled drywall. There's lots of wood that's in the wall. The noticeable thing right when I first walked in was a very pungent smell of a bleach cleaner. And when I go to a job that's remediation and I smell a bleach cleaner, that worries me because something's not done correctly. And upon inspecting it, it looks like everything's just bright white where the block, the wood, everything got sprayed with some kind of either peroxide or a bleach cleaner. And when this happens, basically what they're doing is changing the color of the mold for only a short period of time. It may change for only 6 months at a time, but you're not removing any mold. You're changing the color of the mold. That's the same thing as bleaching something and it changes the color of like your jeans or if you put peroxide in your hair, it's going to make it lighter, but it's not going to remove any of the mold itself.
Well, it's funny that you said that because, the first thing I smelled was obviously the bleach when we walked in, but to look at the wood on the wall, it was like they scrubbed the outside of the wall, right? I mean,
correct.
And then the wood was still Tapconned not to say cut nailed probably to the wall. So
That's
you
right.
got PT wood that was against the wall already. It's not like they pulled the wood off, scrubbed the whole piece of wood, and then put it back on, right?
That's right. And I mean, the key thing is it's wood in remediation, and you have to sand to clean it, but you also have to encapsulate it. And there was not a drop of encapsulate on any of that wood. So, I mean, this wood has not been treated. You'll never fully remove 100% of mold spores from wood. I mean, it's embedded in there. You're not going to remove it. But the key is to encapsulate it. And, this, like I said, this is a highly recognized remediation company, and they hold multiple licenses, but yet they did not do this job correctly. And that's kind of what I want to touch base on today. Know who you're going to involve in your work. And if you're doing a remediation at your home, your insurance company is going to specify the amount, which is arguable, but the one thing they cannot specify is who you use for that service. So if they recommend, hey, we're going to send out such and such, you have the right to choose whoever you'd like to have come into your home and do the remediation work. That's not the insurance company's call on that. That is actually the homeowners. You're the one paying the policy. All they can do is recommend for that contractor to come out and do the work, but you do have the right to refuse that contractor and bring in whoever you'd like.
It's important for the audience listening out there that, what Gerald's talking about is that a lot of times the insurance companies send out an adjuster, right, Brian? Is it
Yeah.
basically how it works? I mean, from that standpoint, once the adjuster from the insurance company sent out, he makes his own designation, right?
Correct. He makes his own pricing for what he feels is going to be the cost of it. But remember, he works for the insurance company. So that's going to be the key thing. The adjuster that the insurance company sends out works for the insurance company. A lot of times he's going to base on what he sees on site on what the insurance company should pay. And sometimes that's correct. A lot of times it's not, because the insurance company is going to offer you a settlement. A lot of times you may not be happy with that settlement. You do have the right as a homeowner and a consumer for that policy to bring in your own public adjuster. And what he's going to do, he's going to fight on your behalf to get what you fully are rightful for that claim. So, I mean, sometimes the insurance company may only offer you a small 20% of what the value of that claim is, and that's their way of backing out of paying for the full amount of that claim. So get yourself a public adjuster. Last week I spoke of Steve Hayden, a Reliable Claims Adjusting. He's a great guy. Steve can help you out if you want to get in contact with Steve. Contact us at either B&K or Prevent Plumbing. We can get you in touch with Steve if you have a remediation job or a claim that you would like some help on. It doesn't have to be just remediation. I mean, it could be any kind of claim. He's a public claims adjuster, so like I said, he can do any kind of claims. So like I said, you have these rights as a consumer and as a policy holder to do that. But, in the same sense, that's what I want to stress about, making sure you call out the right people for the job, because, sometimes people, even though they may seem accredited, they're highly known, that doesn't mean anything. I've been behind several highly known remediation companies, and they've cut so many corners, it's unreal. I couldn't bring myself to cut those kind of corners and do those kind of things.
It's fun. I hate to stop you. I mean, it's funny that you said that, because when we walked in the door and smelt the chlorine or the bleach on the walls, it was part of really kind of realizing that these guys really didn't even do the right job when they did this. And I mean, to put it back together is another story.
That's correct. And I mean, the other big thing, the big thing for them was they removed items from rooms that had been contaminated, and they were contaminated with mold. These items were contaminated with mold, and these are what we call soft items. So this means cloths, rugs, mattresses. These things are supposed to be wrapped in plastic. They're part of contents, so you can't get rid of them. You're supposed to have them stored. Well, they both mutually agreed that they could be stored in the home, but they had to be wrapped. Not only were these mold-filled items not wrapped, they were placed directly under the return grill for the AC unit. So now you went from 3 homes in the house being contaminated to the whole home being contaminated. So all this work that this national recognized company come in and did was all for nothing, because they just contaminated this whole home. I mean, these guys come in, set up containment barriers to section off these 3 rooms from getting contaminated, took the contaminated items out of those rooms and placed them into an area right up underneath an air grill.
Yeah, I got to say, it was funny because we went into the contaminated rooms. They had it zipped up, like as if it was, it was secure. Like everything was in that room.
But they had the return open.
They had the return open. They had everything that was in those bedrooms inside the living room. So they didn't clean them. They didn't wrap them. They didn't do anything. In the beginning, I was told by her that they were going to get a pod, and they were going to put it in a pod, and they were going to take the pod to an air-conditioned room, clean it down, scrub it down, and that was way. But when we got there,
this stuff wasn't even wrapped in plastic.
It was in other rooms. I mean, it went into the offices where she lives and breathes probably every day. But the biggest part was all of it. I mean, in my opinion, is they're going to have to put it back together. I mean, this is the part that they don't recognize, is that the wood's wet, right? I mean, the wood has to be soaked. I mean, in my opinion, by the time they're done with it. So they're going to screw screws into it with drywall. Next thing you know, the screw's going to probably, rust. And then the mold's going to come back through the drywall at some point in time.
Well, unless the air ducts are treated, the mold's already everywhere because you have mold-infested items placed under return. So what happens is when that return kicks in, the air conditioner cycles, the first thing it does is snatches mold spores off of all those contaminated items and pulls them right up into the return duct. And then next thing you know, they're traveling through the whole air duct system.
Yeah, they were there. I mean, it seemed like they were kind of living in that. I mean, I know she told me that they put them up in a hotel, but I mean, they're there during the day, so that means the contamination is just getting around them in the first place.
The mold spores are traveling.
Was this to a point where the remediation was supposedly done and it's ready for put
Yeah.
back?
That's correct.
Wow.
Yeah, they did the demolition, and then they did the clean, I guess.
Yeah, they did the demolition.
because
they
they did
they did the cleanup. They still had the containment barriers up, but their services were complete, and they're billing out the insurance company. But like I said, you have items that were not wiped down. One of the things that was left in this pile of stuff was a shower door. Now, if this were to be properly wiped down, you would see that it would be wiped down, because any kind of cleaner that you're going to use is going to leave a streak. It's not like Windex or anything like that. So a cleaner is not going to fully wipe off. You're going to see a streak from that. But I can still see on that glass that there was nothing whatsoever that had been wiped on that. So I know if that glass door had not been wiped down, which is a hard surface, I know that those soft surface. Well, you could see the mold on the soft surfaces, so those hadn't been handled properly.
It's sad if you guys, like with your guys' experience, you're able to walk into that situation and know that it was done incorrectly and it's wrong. But there's a lot of times where people walk in and it's like, give them a number and just start putting it back together.
Right, and we had made it very clear, if you remember, there was no demolition permit pulled on the job. Wow. So the reality is that they've already taken everything out, spread it all around. What Gerald was talking about was the shower door, about cleaning it. Was the funny part is that on their bid they told them they were going to replace the shower door. So why would they put a contaminated shower door? And if you remember, it was laying up against the bed mattresses, right? It wasn't the mattresses right there. So they laid the shower door right up against the mattresses. So the reality is that now they knew they weren't keeping the shower door, but they were going to they were going to put a new one in. Why even keep something that was not even needed?
And the shower door was at ground zero for where the leak was. So, most of your mold contamination was right there where the shower door was.
Yeah, a lot of it. If you remember, those rusted all the metal.
Yeah,
studs.
and then even so, the wood studs that were around the door frames, because there was a closet and a couple other things that were right there by that shower, those wood frames down there at the bottom were filled still with mold. So, where can you go with that? You still got a contaminated room that you're going to put back together, and of course, it's going to end up festering again. So,
the $1 million question is what caused the original leak? Did
a CPVC line that broke, and they
wow.
They had to actually tear the shower out to repair that.
You want to know something? She had showed me the piece that they cut out, and I in my mind I was thinking maybe it was a screw or something that had cracked, but something had damaged the pipe. But actually, the pipe had split like a razor knife.
Yeah,
that's CPVC, and
it's brittle.
It wasn't on the ends. It wasn't anywhere it was in the middle of the wall. Nothing touched it, but I swear that it was a razor blade slice right down the pipe, like as if somebody cut it.
And I'm sure they went ahead and decided to have the place repiped before they put everything back.
I've already suggested, Gerald and I had the conversations with the homeowner, that they need to force the insurance companies to make sure that happens, because, in my mind, they're going to, if they did this kind of repair work or mold and remediation work, if they've done that now and they say they're done, can you imagine what they're going to do just to get it back to drywall and finish?
Yeah, and once that's done, you're still dealing with a faulty pipe. So, who knows? It could be just 2 more years down the road, and this is going to happen all over again, because you still have that same CPVC pipe that was faulty in the first place throughout the rest of this home. So, that's how you kind of have to, speak to an insurance company, because you have to let them know, hey, I've still got the same pipe. Do you want to wait 2 more years and let's do this again, same song and dance, or do you want to go ahead and let's get this done?
And you're right. It would happen again.
I'll tell you right now, from the way you were describing the pipe is damaged, it's not like it was an installation or something caused by one of the workers, a glue joint that was bad.
Right. No, wasn't
that's
it.
A defective issue with
that's
the product.
The pipe. That was the pipe.
Yeah.
That probably
and
just
that's
pressure.
a product issue.
That's why we, at the Prevent Plumbing, we do not use CPVC pipe, period. People don't understand that, and they see these bids when they ask for repipes or when they see things done. They are very recognized plumbing companies here in town, and that is a sole pipe they use is CPVC. And the reason being is because of cost. Cost does not matter to me. Quality and my concern for the customer, and that's why we only are going to use PEX pipe and only going to use brass lead-free fittings.
PEX pipe? Wait a minute. PEX pipe?
Specs. It's going to be cheaper for the customer in the long run, anyways. Because in the long run, if they use CPVC, they're going to end up paying for repairs and
Yeah,
things
it's
like
12,
that.
15 years down the road, you're going to be redoing it again. Whereas PEX pipe, the manufacturer is going to give you a 25-year warranty. I mean, you can't go wrong with 25-year warranty from any manufacturer on a pipe.
Yeah, one things that the audience needs to understand. I mean, what we're talking about is just one customer out there in Southwest Florida that had a water leak with with the CPVC. If you have a thought that maybe your water meter is running longer, right, Brian? Water bill's high. Toilets could cause that, but a lot of times you could have a leak in the slab, which is some of the things that's getting ready to commonly happen with copper pipes in the slab, right? Yeah,
We've dealt with one this past week.
yeah. Once you have a slab leak, it's probably best, Brian, to repipe, right?
That is correct. And there are a lot of homes here in Southwest Florida that have copper as well as CPVC looped through the slab. So both of these pipings are not good. Concrete, the chemicals in concrete will eat both of these.
CPVC in the slab?
They surely do. We've done a $4 million house in Gray Oaks, had every stick of it was
There was a
looped.
large community that you and I did a lot of work at several years ago, and probably 80% of all that
In the slab?
was CPVC looped in the slab.
That is correct.
Well, that you wouldn't know that forever, right?
Well, until it failed. And
Right.
every one of them's on the verge of failing now because they're at that
And
time
that was
frame.
actually back in a time when the way the code stated, there are actually because we would go there for leaks, for service leaks, that other contractors had done the work, and there's actually fittings under the concrete,
Right.
CPVC fittings.
So they were just taking a loop of
Yeah.
20 feet and just sticking it in the ground. But
Yeah, or they'd put a T in
Right.
under the ground and run a line over here. And back in the day, when we had to use copper, if we were going to put a joint underneath the slab, we had to silver solder.
Right.
Which we didn't do much of that unless, it's more like brazing, which these guys do all the time. But
yeah, that's crazy to me. The problem with Southwest Florida is that we've grown so large in 20 years or 30 years, and throughout those 30 years, we have changed the codes how many times? 10, right? From a code book standpoint. So if you take the codes changed that drastically fast, Southwest Florida stayed up with the codes, and so we've learned it's not like the LED bulb, right? When they say it's going to light for 20 years. You get a 10-year warranty on that bulb. I just want to know, has it been sitting burning for 10 years or what, right?
That's it.
So the funny thing is that we learn over the years things that are products that are in the homes now that were 10, 15 years ago really weren't as good as they made it out to be, right?
And that boils down to a lot of homeowners are aggravated about permitting, about all the steps that contractors have to take with the permitting process, the multiple amounts of inspections. But these are the things that over the years, things have improved, and it's actually helping the homeowner. And so while you may be aggravated with that contractor for having to do that, and you say, well, this handyman over here, he's not going to pull a permit, I can get this done cheaper and faster. Those inspections and those permits are in place to save the homeowner. And that's, why even though it is an aggravation to the consumer as well as the contractor, a lot of times it's an aggravation. It has to be done because it protects both parties. It protects us because we have somebody who's outside of the circle who's going to be inspecting it, and they're not going to side with the contractor or anything. They're going to make sure that it's done to code, and that's to protect the homeowner.
Well, the issue is that, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. I don't think, some of us may have cars that are 25 years old, like a Mustang.
It's in the garage. Keep going.
But, you guys got to think about it. You don't have a 25-year-old TV. You don't have a 25-year-old mattress. And where I'm trying to get with that is everything has a life expectancy. So, and it goes to out of sight, out of mind. CPVC pipe, copper pipe, everything has a certain life expectancy. So, you have to start thinking about that now. If your home is 20 plus, 30 plus years, it's now about that time to start thinking about replumbing because that piping has met its lifetime already. And it's time to get ahead of the curve. Like I said, it's out of sight, out of mind, and we're all guilty of it.
So, Gerald, from an audience standpoint, I want to kind of recap on some of the things you talked about was, the public adjuster, Brian, in my opinion, that's a no-brainer, right?
Right.
I mean, I know from my own standpoint, when the insurance company sends somebody out, they're not going to go and say, we're going to give you the biggest and best deals you get, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to give you a Cadillac design. They're going to give you a Kia design, maybe.
Datsun.
Datsun. But regardless of all that, is that the homeowner is really kind of at the guns of the insurance company when they say, "Listen, we can get this done in 5-6 weeks." And what you just talked about, no permits, no nothing, right? And we'll send our crew in, and they'll take care of it. And so a lot of times, homeowners just kind of throw their hands up and say yes. And we're telling you out there, if you're an audience and you had a water leak, or if you had a shower leak, or if you have mold issues where you see bubbling of drywall, right, Joe? Mm-hmm. If you see the actions around the shower doors, if you see tile that the grout has been gone in the corners, I mean, a lot of times the grout you really don't pay attention to, but grouting your showers is most important part of, maintenance, right?
Yeah, and sealing your tile, natural stone.
Yeah, it will keep at least the amount of water going through. A lot of homes didn't have Durarock, on them, and now it's code to run Durarock. It's also code to, mud the joints with a latex on it.
Waterproofing it now.
Right.
That's
So,
huge.
and it's an important part. I mean, back 10 years ago, I seen guys using foam, spray foam, to kind of, to keep that in. But you're not stopping water from a lot of things. So waterproofing is part of what a new shower would get, right? And the rest of this is really kind of putting it back the right way. And what Gerald was talking about earlier with the drywall having bleach on it, it was so, pungent of a smell.
It was.
That she couldn't even recognize the smell. We did, but we could smell the smell right when we walked in the door. And I said to them, I smell the chlorine and the bleach. And she goes, I don't smell anything. So that's scary enough to know from a homeowner standpoint. You really don't know what you're getting and who's doing what and what repairs. Gerald, we touched on this. Inspections are a hassle. We all know that. Especially right now, trying to even get a permit is a hassle. But I would suggest highly that you call professionals that, know exactly what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do it, with a procedure that's going to make sure that your home's put back the right way to the codes, correct?
Correct.
And that, it is an important part of it, because to see, and I don't know, the company was from Tampa, but to see a company come down here, do work in our town, put the work back to more dangerous probably than what it was before, and then to even put their own selves with the equipment and anything the homeowner owned right underneath the air conditioning ductwork, told me that.
Yeah, with obvious mold on it, that's a no-brainer in anybody's. You're talking about soft material that has obvious mold, sitting on the surface, and you're just letting it get sucked up into the AC unit. So that's a terrible thing, and that's knowing who you bring into your home. We had another incident where we had, a plumbing call, and I went to this one, and I crawled up underneath the sink, and the guy said, well, I had a handyman, reconnect everything, and right there was he had water damage. They'd already had to make a claim. He had a dehumidifier sitting there, already had a company come out to evaluate it, and all this stemmed from the handyman had actually taken, he had a hot and a cold side, and that handyman had actually taken a T, placed it on the cold side, so now he's running the faucet, the kitchen faucet, as well as the dishwasher off the cold stop. Now, if you've ever washed your dishes in cold water, you have done nothing at all. Everybody, you might as well took it outside and hosed it off with the water hose.
It don't get hot by itself.
No,
It don't.
So this guy literally has taken the dishwasher and hooked it up to the cold stop, and there was a single stop there, so he had to go buy a special compression tee just to hook this up. Now, over on the hot side was a dual stop, and what that means is you have two stops in one. And so one side, of course, housed the hot side of his faucet. The other side, since the dishwasher was going to be placed on the cold side, he had to place a cap on there. Well, what people who are not plumbers do not realize is just because that is a compression cap does not mean that it just goes right on. You're talking metal on metal, and there's no way to keep water out of that. You actually have to place your own O-ring inside the compression cap, or else it leaks. So what happened was the guy turned that stop on thinking that was the one for his faucet, and didn't think nothing of it. He walks away actually all weekend and then realized Monday when he was doing something, wait, this whole floor is wet because
You had a fountain.
he had water that was coming out from underneath the tile out the back door.
Yeah,
Wow.
leaked into the cabinet, got in through the holes where it was drilled in the bottom of the cabinet for the pipes to come through, right onto the concrete, which then on top of
Spread
the
out.
concrete spread out.
Spread out of the
This is
tile.
a brand new kitchen, brand new floor,
Like just like we talked about with the little fingers on the trowels,
brand new cabinet.
ran through those little grooves in the thin set up underneath the tile, ran out the back door, ran up underneath all the cabinets through the walls, and the only thing that he's gotten so far out of that was a dehumidifier sitting in a room. Now, this dehumidifier is great for an enclosed area, but this area is not enclosed and is an actual open kitchen, dining room, living room area. So you have a dehumidifier that's sitting in there and is doing nothing.
Here's what he said, remember? Yeah, it's a guy I met from the gym that does handyman work, but he was dressed nice. Remember?
Yeah, he was dressed nice, and I'm
was he
going.
licensed in his shirt? He said, no.
Driver's
Pretty
license.
sharp looking.
He dressed nice, but I said, was he licensed in any shirt? He said, no. And I said, and that's where you're going to find fault. Is in
That's sad though. That is. I mean, I realize right now in my own self, there's a lot of people out of work right now. Right. I mean, that's a sad part for people, and I know that a lot of people that may have had experiences hooking up a dishwasher. I'm just kind of saying from a standpoint of plumber, but. The guy said, "Hey, man, I mean, if you dress that well, you know us, Brian."
Here's the scary part. He said, well, he also did some ceiling fans.
Oh.
And what else? What else was
God.
it, Gerald?
he did ceiling fans and some other stuff, but I
at
mean,
his house. So I'm thinking to myself, he might want to get an electrician over here and have those fans rechecked.
Well, we know from a handyman standpoint, Juan, what really a handyman can do with ceiling fans.
I think they can only replace the fan blades and dust them off.
That's it. Pull off them fan blades and dust them off. Can they? They can change air filters too. I mean, that's as far as they can go, though, right? Yeah. We on the maintenance sheet. We've always said that maintenance sheet. And the handyman, I understand. I clearly do. Like I said earlier, I know at a time right now, right, guys. I mean, this is a tough time for a lot of people with work, making money. I mean, if you're sitting home, leave it to the professionals. If you are looking for a job and you're needing work. You could always give us a call. We're taking applications. If you are, a plumber, electrician, I don't know about Danny, but looking for work.
Yeah, I'm actually looking for some help myself right now.
So, it's always good, to give us a call. Gerald, you know that as well as I do. We always accept applications. You never know who's looking for work, but don't put yourselves in a position if you're a handyman or if you're a friend from him from the gym and telling him that, you'll help him out when obviously something like this is probably going to cost $30,000.
I mean, that's the key thing, because even though a lot of people are out of work, money is real tight, you get what you pay for. So, if you're going to cut the cost on what you're going to pay for somebody, it's more than likely going to bite you in the end, And like I said, the guy hooked up the kitchen. I was nervous about the dishwasher. I don't know if he's ran it, but a lot of folks don't realize there's a knockout plug in a dishwasher and a garbage disposal. So, that was one of the things he hooked up was a garbage disposal. If you don't realize that there's a knockout plug in that garbage disposal, when you cut the dishwasher on, you're going to flood it again because everything's going to come out the door because the plug didn't get pushed out and your dishwasher drain connects into your garbage disposal. So these are things that, is second nature for a plumber, but sometimes a handyman doesn't know these things.
Yeah, it's a sad situation, like I said, from the standpoint of handyman. A lot of people are out there just trying to make their own. I understand that. From an audience standpoint, and some of the listeners out there, you really need to take heed of what's out there for, services. I seen on Facebook, there's so many ads now for electricians, and a lot of people are doing their own work because they can't work at home or they can't work obviously in their jobs, and so they're taking on these side jobs. And I understand it, I clearly do. But leave it to the professionals. Gerald, what's that phone number over at B&K?
It's going to be 239-398-9834.
And Brian, don't fret.
Call Prevent.
What's that phone number, Brian?
239-596-5533.
And Danny, over at Dory's, what's your phone number?
239-331-4465. Out cooling the competition.
There it is again, Brian. Out cooling the competition. You like it. And Juan, what's the phone number?
Give us a call at 239-353-4389. The kind of service that
Built America. Does that sound like I was training? Well, listen, we talked about air quality for the last few weeks, and it's obviously important with the virus. And I'm hearing masks. I mean, now they're talking about if you don't have a mask on, they can fine you. Did you see that? I mean, I can't imagine a cop pulling me over because I didn't have a mask on, but I'm seeing a lot of drastic measures. So, air quality is part of, living with obviously your family for the last 21 days in home would be probably something that would be important for air quality, right?
And sanity.
And sanity.
Yeah.
But, it's important from, a homeowner standpoint to understand that, some of you may be going to work and then the kids are home with the mom or kids are home with their dad. And part of that would be problematic to me is that somebody's going to come home at some point and bring it in the house, right, Danny?
Yep.
Yeah, air quality is important. Filters are being changed, right?
Yep. Got to check them at least monthly.
And a lot of times I hear from a filter standpoint, and I don't know if this term is right, horsehair? Is it horsehair?
Hog hair.
Hog hairs?
Yeah.
Hog hairs.
Hog hair.
That's what we call it. I don't know exactly what it's made of, but it's just a quartz. It's a quartz. It's a heavy quartz, filter.
And do you prefer a regular filter versus, hog hair?
Well, I prefer pleated filters because they're going to catch more, but you got to be careful with that because of static pressure. You don't want to restrain the system too much, so you got to be really careful with the better filtration.
So the virus itself is being known that a lot of times to sanitize or clean something, UV lighting is part of what, some of the things you guys do over at Doria, but also it's important to understand that, it is coming close to summertime. It is definitely hot out there. And I'm sure that people need to probably start worrying about not so much as what we're talking about from air quality and viruses, but also servicing the unit, right?
Yep, you want to keep them maintained, and so that's definitely something preventative that you can call us and we can take care for you. There's a few things that we do we'll check capacitors, motor amperages, and things like that so we can tell you something is going to fail before it fails, so we can fix it before it does fail in the middle of the night or something like that.
And the charging system, I'm sure.
Yep, the refrigerant charge.
That's important. A lot of people I hear say, well, I just pumped it up even farther than what it was supposed to be.
That's not good.
I'm not sure if you overcharge the system, that's going to be a good thing.
No,
right?
not
Head
good.
pressure is crucial on an AC system.
But I do hear that. A guy said to me, I just pumped it up just a little bit past where it was supposed to be, like it was a gas station or something.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can run that high head up pretty high, and it can mess with your electric bill too.
And not to say it, but a lot of people keep the doors open, right, Brian? And so they run the AC, keep the doors open, and then we got even a double problem is that the system probably would never shut off, right?
Yep, humidity starts going up.
Drain lines, those are parts of, problematic for,
Especially
an AC
down here, the ACs could drain up to 8 gallons a day.
Wow.
So that's a lot of condensation, a lot of humidity is pulling out of the house, and all the humidity that's being pulled out of the house is getting condensated outside through the drain line. So
mold is part of what
they
you're
build
seeing
up
there.
slime, biological growth in the drain pan. So you want to keep that clean, and very important to get it maintained at least twice a year.
Yeah, I can only say from what you're saying right now. If you're getting 8 gallons on the regular usage, this ain't regular times, is it? No.
Now it's been hot, real hot.
Yeah. I gotta say. So I would assume that people are using these AC systems at least double as much as what it's been.
Yeah, especially now you got more people in the home, so
Yeah,
they're
it's got
working
to be.
extra hard.
And I know if you run that system at least 15 to 20 hours a day, you're going to have a lot of maintenance issues at that. Not only air quality, right?
Well, yeah, that too. You guys, the customers, they got to do their part too. So we're only usually going out to their house twice a year, but they should be replacing the filters between our visits. So they got to help, their situation.
They have to do their part.
They got to
Yeah,
do their
and-
part
and-
too. So it's not, we're only going twice a year normally. So they got to do their part too.
And one thing I wanted to add on to that, I see a lot of because I am outdoors with, drain pipes and things. A lot of times I will hear people's unit. If your unit starts up and it sounds like it's got a bad lag, like it takes it just a minute to start up, that is not a good sign. And you really need to call Danny and have him come out there and check it because a lot of times that can either be a start capacitor or motor on a fan. And those are things you do not want to go bad on the outside portion because it can really wreck you.
Well, that's one of the things that we're checking during maintenance is we're checking capacitors. We're recommending start boosters. Sometimes even with good capacitors, the compressor is still having a hard time starting. So sometimes we had to put start boosters. And also another thing you can see, sometimes you'll see lights dimming when your AC kicks on. And that's a sign of, compressor pulling high amperage on startup. So that's something.
That's interesting that you say that because we get a lot of calls. I know the load causes a lot of problems. At any point in time on the services, right? especially as hot as it is. I mean, if people got, water heaters and pools and everything else that's running on the electrical system, they just assume it should be running. Once they don't have power, Juan,
Yeah.
that's the first thing they call in is that
The calls come in.
the calls come in, and the air conditioning. I mean, what you made a comment on, Danny, was about the lights being able to dim down. And part of all that is that it does have something to do with the load, and if you're high current or high start on that, it's going to make your lights dim because it's almost at a point probably going to trip the breaker. I would assume. I mean, and that's part of what happens when you're high current. So, what we're talking about there is that, the UV lights, and dehumidifiers. Do you install dehumidifiers also? And from a dehumidifier system, is that a long process to install?
Yeah, it's got to be ducted into the existing ductwork. They have, dehumidifiers you could put in the bedrooms, but they're just something you could buy at Home Depot, but those don't work as well as what we put in that's ducted into the AC units. Normal humidity should be ranging between 40 and 60%. You start getting outside those ranges, you start having problems with, respiratory problems and, mold and things like that.
I have seen, some homeowners that they just love dialing it in. They dial that humidistat back and forth, and that shouldn't be done, correct? It should be set, or how does that work?
You mean, what do you mean dial in humidistat?
Well, they have their favorite setting, so they'll move.
You mean the thermostat or the? Because normally you don't usually dial a humidistat. Normally they're moving the thermostat, but.
I think a lot of times on the older type thermostats and humidistats were side by side back in the day.
Yeah, those were more meant for when the customers are here part time when they leave town. They set their dehumidistat to
But I don't think they were dehumidifiers installed.
There weren't dehumidifiers. All they were doing was just
pulling
turning on the AC unit when they
certain times.
Yeah.
Once it hit humidity factor,
Yeah.
you hit 65%, the AC would just automatically come up. And parts of what we've talked about in the past is that air conditioning is a lot of times people want to be 60 degrees and don't realize what moisture creates from an air conditioning unit, but also not taking out the moisture in the air. And part of all that is that windows, we've talked about in the past, a lot of times you see the windows in the morning moistured up. That's actually what it's doing to your home, right?
Yep, getting everywhere.
Sweating.
So the bigger a unit, a lot of times it's harder for a unit to stop running all day. So then you create the moisture.
Well, yeah, a lot of the problems is because the system's not sized right. It could be other issues, leaky windows, things like that, and we can help that with dehumidifier. But sometimes you got to start off with making sure the AC's correctly sized, and if it's correctly sized, then maybe dehumidifier is the right application for you.
So to take it back to one notch, the dehumidifier itself. This is something that you can duck in, do it yourself. It's something that I'm not do it yourself. I don't want to say that, right? But it's something that you guys do over at Doria is that you can come in, put a dehumidifier, and then duct it into the system, and it would change obviously parts of the quality of the air right then.
Yeah, definitely. It helps out. Humidity plays a big role on your indoor quality.
And then the UV light would come into play also from a standpoint of UV is cleaning up. Obviously the coils, which is part of all that, right?
Yeah, but it'll keep the maintenance down on the UV lights because it keeps that stuff from growing in your pan, building up on your coils and things like that.
And in the process for that, it doesn't sound like it's going to take too long. If you guys were going to put in a dehumidifier and a UV light, is that a 4-hour job, a 5-hour job?
Depending on the ductwork, sometimes depending on what they have there now, but probably 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah, we talked last week. Running a dehumidifier and a UV lights is part of what my opinion is air quality, right? And then in the second breath, Brian, we talked last week with Gerald about the fog machine. I guess that's right, and the ozone machine. If you are the audience listening out there, and you're looking to get your air quality cleaned up, I would suggest highly to call Danny over to Doria's. On the same breath, he's able to put in a dehumidifier and a UV light for probably less than 6 hours, right, Danny? Yep. And then in the same breath, you have, not to say it, Gerald can come out from B&K and then run the ozone machine and do a fog, right?
That's great.
And all that's all bacterial clean, right? That's how that's going to work.
Yeah. And I wanted to reiterate on Danny about having a properly trained air conditioning guy come in, because he's going to be able to read the humidity that's in your unit. So if your air conditioner's not pulling out enough humidity and you do need the extra little bit that's going to come from him putting in a dehumidifier, he's going to do it correctly, because you can take too much humidity out. And if you do that, then that causes you health problems just the same as too much humidity in the air. So those are key factors to making sure you have a trained professional come out and do it. In our line of work, we're used to dehumidifiers. We're used to industrial ones. And so they do take out the excess moisture in certain confined areas. And that really does damage to your nasal cavity and everything else if you take out too much humidity. So trying that at home with the Home Depot ones, I'll just put a couple of them here and there. You won't be able to balance your air correctly, and that's when you need to have a trained professional come in who can read the humidity in your unit and give you the correct decisions and the correct options on which way to go to properly balance out your air, because that is very key here in Florida with the heat and the humidity on the exterior the way it is, making sure you balance it on the inside.
Yeah, I want to bring up the dehumidifiers too that we put in. They have an outdoor inlet on it, so we can bring outdoor air into the dehumidifier before we push it into your AC. So we're dehumidifying the outdoor air before it's going into your AC unit. So that's a plus too.
It balances the system.
Yep.
I mean, the pressures are in the houses that way too.
Because we
right?
could put a dehumidifier without outdoor air, but kind of like defeating the purpose in a sense.
Right. You know, it's important for the audience to understand. I mean, we talk about, for the last few weeks about the air quality and mold, and these are some of the things that's going to get highly, highly deeper, right, Brian, within the next few weeks. And part of that is that you want to be concerned that if you're now going to be staying in a home for the last 5 weeks, there's going to be a lot of, mold probably from everywhere, right? So one of the things that Danny's doing over Dory is they're putting in these UV lights and dehumidifiers, but also, Danny, we talk about maintenance, right? Yeah. So maintenance is part of, an important part of all of it. And Juan, we had a conversation off air earlier that the part of maintenance on electrical systems is part of one of the things people don't recognize is that the air conditioning, the water heater, the dryer, all the big loads are parts of what's working right now, overtime probably because people are at home.
Yeah, it's really putting a strain on the systems.
On the electrical services, we're seeing a lot of phases burned up. We're getting calls for, panels being burned up. And I would highly suggest, right, to get somebody out there to kind of, check your electrical system out because it's part.
Yeah, so what we offer over at American Electrical is we have different stages depending on the square footage of your home, and it's a safety residential maintenance program, and what we do is it's an inspection of your home, of your electrical system. We do a thorough check. We start off in the electrical panel in your garage or where it may be. We open that up. We check all the electrical connections. We check the breakers. We check the terminals. Make sure all that's fine. We tighten up the terminals as well. From there, we move on to disconnects. We check your AC disconnects, inside, outside, any sub panels, pull panels. We check those. Make sure everything looks fine. If there's any, violations or anything that raise an alarm, we jot them down. We continue on checking all the switches, receptacles in your home. We check the smoke detectors. Just because it doesn't chirp doesn't mean it works.
Oh, Brian, we already heard that one before.
Yeah, so.
Oh, was that chirp?
You went old school, brought that.
I went old school on that one. But yeah, if you're.
You'd say twerk, right?
Chirp. But, it's out of sight, out of mind. We're creatures like that. So we have to look into our smoke detectors. We check if it's 5 years old, we recommend to change it out. We replace with factory installed sealed lithium ion battery smoke detectors rated up for 10 years. So you don't have to worry about that. Once we get done with your smoke detectors and your receptacles and your switches, then we move on to fixtures. We just look at the conditions and make sure everything is fine. So we go through your home thoroughly, depending on the square footage. And right now, speaking with Anthony, we're going to do a promotion throughout the month of May. Typically it's 150.
Let's get to April. Let's get through April first.
We're in April now. We're doing a promotion for the lockouts.
Oh, so the lockout kits.
The lockout kits of
Got
April.
me scared, man.
Yeah.
I thought this was Twilight Zone and we were in a different world.
Let's just start it now. We might as well just start it now. So let's start it now. We'll run it through, and it's typically $150
Maintenance
maintenance.
inspections.
Yeah, for that, but we'll do it for $99, and we'll check your home up to 3,000 square feet.
You know, it's important to understand that, you know, we go over the codes during the show. We go over about what's mandatory, right, Brian? I mean, Gerald, I mean, what's legal in the county, and we're small subcontractors. We're not these large contractors out there. This radio show is based on small subcontractors, as you know, right, Danny? So in all of this is that the reality is that we're trying to educate the audience on understanding air quality, which is this virus has got to do with right now. And in the same breath, we still want to touch base on some of the things that it's affected because of the virus. And I state that because we're in the home a lot longer. We're using the water a lot longer, the electricity a lot longer, the plumbing a lot longer. And a lot of these things are now probably being double timed. And if we go into this any longer, which, you know, I don't want to state that, but if we go into this any longer into April, May, and June, you're going to have some services and electricity and ACs and water heaters all start to slowly, I would suggest, go bad, right? I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, now's the time to do it. You know, once, you know, you say the good Lord says, you know, this is going to be over soon. But, you know, once this is all over, I think it's going to be time that we, you know, you get into your homes and you do the services that are needed. You're going to need your AC system, you know, taking a look at, you know, filters and maintenance, your compressor outside and your air handler. You're going to need your plumbing looked at to make sure that the toilet seats and the valve stops and everything is working correctly. Because the last thing you want to do is have a major leak, and then you'll be calling B&K.
Yeah.
You know, after that, you know, you got to make sure your electrical is fine. You know, I just had a service call the other day, a good friend of ours, you know, and she was unsure if it was her dryer or her dryer receptacle, you know, and after speaking with her, you know, I'm like, well, you know, I highly doubt, you know, it's going to be your outlet, but we'll go. So peace of mind would be that you had someone check your electrical system. Turned out it was the dryer that was an issue, not the receptacle. But like I said, a peace of mind knowing that you had your AC maintenance, you had your water system, your plumbing looked at thoroughly, you know, steel braided lines installed to know that you're going to be fine, and having your electrical system checked as well at the end of this.
And I want to touch base on that. If you've lived in your home for 10 plus years and you've changed out faucets, you've changed out toilets, ask yourself this: when was the last time you had anything done about the electrical? And a lot of people will say, I've never had anything done, never so much as an inspection or anything. And those are key factors, because if you've listened to the show, they will tell you time and time again about how the buses, the screws, everything can come loose in these, and next thing you know, you have an issue with your electrical. Don't prolong it out to where it becomes a major issue. If you can have an inspection done and have your bus bar tightened, or if you have a breaker that is going to fail replaced, then you can save yourself from a larger issue that is going to cost you a lot more, because, you know, if you burn up a panel box, that's a lot of money. If you dip it in the bud before it gets to that point, you can save yourself a lot by having regular maintenance. Nobody ever thinks about regular maintenance on your electrical, but I have been in so many homes dealing with water heaters, dealing with different things like that, and it turns out to be an electrical issue.
You hit it right there on the head, Gerald, because, you know, there's a lot of times where I get the service call, you know, on the weekend, you know, and, you know, what, either I get the AC is, you know, not working, I get the water heater is not working, or, you know, some combination of both. So to the homeowner, you know, it's, okay, who do I go with first? Do I call an electrician, or do I call the AC guy? Do I call the plumber? You know, and it's a tough thing to say, well, you might want to call a plumber first because it could just be a bad element. Or you might want to call the electrician because it might be a bad breaker or something going on from there. It's a hard thing to choose. So having your system maintenance, like Gerald just mentioned, you know, that would give you the peace of mind.
Yeah, you know, what we're talking about, I mean, is maintenance right now, because one of the things we talked about a few weeks ago is the toilet paper syndrome, right, Brian? That toilet paper was clogging up a lot of drains, and I think that you're going to start to see, after a few weeks of using the toilets a lot and using the drain a lot, you're probably going to start to get, drain calls.
Yeah, we just got one this past weekend.
Yeah. It's part of what we're talking about, is that if you go around this table, the electrical, it's going to be working twice as much. The air conditioning is going to be working twice as much. The water heater, the plumbing, the drains are going to be working twice as much, and that's going to create more. Problems. If you don't get it maintenance, then, again, I state this. You're probably using it. It's twice as much, but it could be even 3 times as much. You never know.
Yeah, and if you're using your air conditioner more, you're using your water heater more. The thing that takes the biggest brunt is your electrical because it powers all of it.
Yeah, lights dim down, and you better call us, right, Juan?
Yeah, give us a call. Like Danny mentioned earlier, there's 2 parts of that. It could be the starting capacitor, the starting winding on the compressor motor. It could be loose connections, loose neutral, to the point where you may lose a neutral, or a phase. There's a lot of variables into that, but
even the power company could
even
cause
a power company. I
They're
would
on
say at
overtime.
least it could be at maybe 6 out of 10 times it's a power company, and it's just good to have it checked out.
They're working on overtime. The power company. It's funny because I said to somebody, I go, most of the family members are kind of combining their family members. So if you take a home that was probably only 4 people in it, and now their family members are there, and there's 6 or 8, or maybe even 10, you're going to have all of this kind of work 3 times as hard.
I'm running 7 right now.
7?
7.
See, that's not normal.
That's not normal.
So, I'm one and run. One. But the reality is that, what we're talking about is that, the systems that everybody has in their home, they've taken advantage of. But if something goes bad with a lift station or the septic tank or the drains or the water heater, check it. Because right now is the time. ACs, I can tell you right now, I would clean and maintenance now and not wait for that 2 times a year, right, Danny?
Yeah, you got to call us now because summer hasn't even started and it's already
And it's
torturing
roasting
hot out
ducks.
there.
It's hot. Yeah, I am dumbfounded about how hot the last few days are. And Brian said something off the air that the storms are going to probably be a lot worse this year, right, Brian?
Yeah, that's what they're predicting. But the Gulf temperatures.
Yeah, the Gulf temperatures is causing it. But, that's part of what we're talking about. So, one of the things we talk about over at American Electrical is that lockout kit, right?
Yeah, lockout kit. Getting ready for the senior.
Don't wait.
Don't wait. Don't wait for hurricane season to creep up on you. Now's the time to get in it, get the deals. We're running a promotion. Give me a call. Say you heard me on the radio. $600 will get you a lockout kit installed and ready for a generator hookup.
If nothing else, talk your neighbor into it so you can run an extension cord over there.
There you go.
They could probably get a pretty good discount if they called in and had 2 of them done, right?
Yeah, well, you get 2 next door, you get your neighbor, then we will be giving you a discount.
Yeah, the discount will be get your neighbor off your back.
Well, what's that phone number over there, Juan?
Give us a call at 239-353-4389.
The kindest service.
That built America.
Well, listen, fellas, I know a lot of times we kind of come into this end of the show and we talk about the shout outs, right? We talk about the shout outs for people, and not to say it, but I shout out again every week to, the first responders, the nurses, the doctors out there dealing with this. I shout out to the grocery stores, the gas stations, the Wawas, right, Gerald?
That's it.
The Wawas that are staying alive.
Making them biscuits every morning.
Making biscuits. But, it's important to understand that I'm giving a shout out to the people that are staying home right now, the people that are kind of suffering with all this. And I say suffering because I know it is tough to stay in the home. Sometimes people, I see on Facebook are walking around in neighborhoods, and I know it's 6 foot distance, some of the things you got to do, but be safe to your own self for your family. You don't want to bring that home to your family. And it's important to understand that, this virus is real. I will say that. This morning I did go to Wawa, and she had a mask on and a big face shield in front of the glass. And I said, how long do you think this is going to go on for? And she said, till December. And all I could think in my mind is that I don't want people to really feel that way, because the reality is that we have the best man on the job dealing with it. And part of that is what he's going to do is get us back on our feet. So don't get scared on all that.
Trump 2020.
Trump 2020. So, Brian and Gerald, you guys got some shout-outs this morning?
Yeah, this week we're going to give a shout-out to Falconor Jones at Falcon Design. We appreciate you listening to us every Saturday morning on the radio.
Falcon and Jones, is that what you said?
Falconor Jones.
Falconor Jones. And they're the architect, or you said an engineer?
Yep, Falcon Designs.
Falcon Designs. Give them a call. Give Gerald a call. You guys can get a hold of them through Gerald. Brian, you got a shout-out this week?
Yeah. I like to just give a shout out to everybody out there. Stay safe.
That's right.
You know,
God bless them.
practice common sense.
Practice
I know it's hard for some of us.
He's just happy the Cadbury's went on sale for half price.
That's Throw
right.
little peeps in there.
A few peeps that made you happy, though, right, Brian?
Oh, yeah.
That's the only thing. Most important thing is to make you happy. Well, Danny, you know, you're new to the show. We kind of greenballed you. You have anybody out there that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm gonna give a shout out to Tropic Supply. They're my main supplier for air conditioning products, and
Tropic Supply is a known, well-named company around here.
yep,
Brad works there.
Brad works there.
Oh, we should talk
Well,
Brad.
the thing, we had a little issue today with a warranty part, and I kind of jumped on their case a little hard today. So I just want to give them a shout out because I know they're having it rough over there because we're not allowed to go into the supply houses at the moment. They're having to stop at the door and
Isn't
getting
there a
everything.
table set out? Something like that? Pass by
Yeah,
there.
got a table outside, so it's kind of tough right now. But I just want to give them a shout out because I know they're doing everything
Tell you
they
what,
can.
buy something and try to return it right now.
Oh, yeah.
They won't take it back.
Shit. Probably holds it down with Lysol or something.
Yeah, well, you know, Tropic Supply has been around a long time. I mean, they're a good company, a local company. And you know, that's part of, I mean, what we would give the shout out for is for these local companies and local people that, you know, we want to recognize out there in Southwest Florida. And Juan, I mean, I know last week we talked about the high school students at graduation and the college kids. And I know it's becoming a hard time for some of these kids to not just get the graduation. And I will say, I mean, you students that are graduating 2020, God bless you. This is just a hiccup in the world. And when you come out of this, it's going to be better. Don't worry, because this is just something you'll remember. I mean, I know it's hard to say that you didn't get to walk down the aisle and some of those things, but it will be okay. This world will revolve faster and better after this is over. But congratulations on getting there, right, Juan?
Yeah, getting there.
And so that's the most important part, right?
Yeah, and the key thing is to remember that no matter what you graduated, not even the virus could keep you from graduating. It may have shut down the economy, but it didn't keep you from graduating.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. You're
Exactly.
graduating no matter what and going on to your life. So, Juan, do you got a shout out?
Actually, the shout out is going to same area. It's to the teachers. You know,
Online teachers.
online teachers. You know, they're doing their thing. They're making it happen. And I mean, I've seen some videos on Facebook of teachers creating, you know, certain aspects for parents at home to show their kids, you know, to continue the learning. You know, they're doing Zoom for, you know, the middle school kids and the high school and college. But what is it out there for the younger kids, you know? And I've seen a few videos out there on Facebook, which is great. And just big shout out to you, teachers.
Yeah, the teachers, I mean, I got to say, a lot of the teachers are going through it. Martha's going through it. Sue, I mean, a lot of people I know that are going through it. It's a hard time for everybody, but, you know, it only makes you stronger, right, Brian? That's right. The most important part of everything is that, you know, whatever doesn't kill you
Makes you stronger.
makes you stronger, right? So, ladies and gentlemen out there in the audience, I want to thank you for listening, and God bless America, and Semper Fi.
Hoorah!